Okay, imagine a scenario for a second.
All right, I'm listening.
You walk into your bank tomorrow morning, or, better yet, you're just on your phone. You open up your banking app, and there's this huge notification waiting for you.
And this is the part where I find out I've been hacked.
No, surprisingly, it's the exact opposite. The bank is offering you money.
Okay.
And I don't mean some credit card with a 25% APR. I mean money that is, for all intents and purposes, free. 0 interest. The terms are so good they might as well not exist.
This is like a scam.
It totally does. It's the kind of offer that it should come with a huge catch, right? But in this case, the bank is practically begging you to take the cash.
Right, the kind of email that goes straight to my spam folder.
Exactly. It triggers every single alarm bell in your head. But here's the real kicker. In this scenario, you look at the offer, you confirm it's real, you see this free money sitting there, and you just shrug.
And say no thanks.
You say, no thanks, I'm good. You close the app and just go about your day.
Which is. That runs contrary to basically everything we understand about economics.
Yeah.
If money is free, you take it. You invest it, you buy something. You do something.
Of course. It sounds like a thought experiment, something an economist would dream up in a lab.
Right, to test the theory.
But the reveal here, and this is why we are talking about it, is that this isn't a theory. This is, right now, the reality in the second largest economy on the planet. We're talking about China.
And that is a perfect setup for what we're digging into today. It's this situation where a massive economic engine is pressing the gas pedal to the floor. The engine's roaring.
But the car's rolling backward.
Exactly.
So welcome to the deep dive. Today, our mission is to unpack the mechanics of what economists are calling the Chinese liquidity trap. We're working from a whole stack of economic analysis that breaks this down.
It's a really fascinating and, frankly, a pretty alarming situation.
It is. So we're going to map out the journey for you. First, what a liquidity trap actually looks like.
Then we'll get into a concept called a balance sheet recession, which I know it sounds a bit dry, but it describes a really terrifying psychological shift.
And then we'll look at the silent killer in all of this, deflation. And most importantly, why any of this matters to you, no matter where you are listening.
Because what happens in an economy that big, it doesn't stay there.
Okay, let's get into the machinery. How is this all supposed to work? Because usually when an economy slows down, there's a playbook, right? It's almost muscle memory for central bankers.
Right. If you open any Econ 101 textbook, the logic is very mechanical. When an economy weakens, growth slows, unemployment ticks up, the central bank steps in.
And their main tool, their big lever, is the interest rate.
It is. They lower the interest rate.
Which just makes money cheaper to buy.
Precisely. Loans become cheap. So in a functioning system, businesses look at that and say, hey, great time to borrow, build a new factory, hire more people.
And consumers think, okay, good time to get a mortgage or buy a car. My payments will be low.
The whole idea is to stimulate spending and investment. You get the economic wheel turning again.
So that's the norm. That's the transmission mechanism.
Yes.
The central bank turns the dial, and the economy is supposed to respond. But the analysis we're looking at today, it suggests that in China, that line has been cut.
It's snapped completely. We're seeing a huge anomaly. The People's Bank of China, their central bank, they've been lowering rates. They're injecting liquidity.
Which is just a fancy way of saying they're pouring cash into the banks.
A ton of cash. The banks are swimming in it. But the money is getting stuck. It's just pooling in the vaults. It's not flowing out.
Which brings us back to that great analogy from the source material. It's like pressing the gas pedal while the car is in neutral.
The engine is revving like crazy, but the car isn't moving.
And that's what makes this a liquidity trap and not just a normal recession.
That's the key distinction. In a normal recession, maybe banks are scared to lend. Here, the banks want to lend. The supply is there.
The problem isn't a lack of money.
It's a lack of will to use it.
Which feels like it shifts the problem from finance to psychology. Why would people and businesses just refuse cheap money?
To understand that, you have to understand the root cause. This brings us to the second big concept, the balance sheet recession.
Okay, balance sheet recession. It sounds like accountant jargon, but the story behind it is actually deeply human.
It really is.
Rare.
The catalyst, according to this analysis, goes back to the bursting of China's real estate bubble.
And we have to remember what real estate means in China. It's not like here where people have, stocks, 401ks.
Exactly. In China, for a very long time, the main way a family stored its wealth was in property, an apartment.
So your home wasn't just a place to live. It was your pension plan, your security, your kids' inheritance, the one can't lose investment.
Yes. It was seen as just always going up. So people leveraged themselves to the hilt. They borrowed heavily to buy second, third apartments.
And then the bubble burst.
It did. Property values started to slide. Developers went bust. And certainly, millions of households looked at their primary asset, their entire net worth, and saw that it had just, well, evaporated.
But the debt they took on to buy it, that didn't go anywhere.
That stays exactly the same. And this is the trigger. This is the core of the balance sheet recession. It causes a massive shift in mindset. In a healthy economy, everyone operates with a mindset of profit maximization. How do I make more money? I borrow to grow my business. I invest to get a return.
Standard capitalist drive, right?
But when your main asset collapses in value and you're technically underwater, you owe more on it than it's worth. Your mindset just flips.
You stop thinking about profit.
You stop thinking about profit and you start obsessing over debt minimization.
The source material had a great phrase for this, closing the minus.
Yes, closing the minus. Your goal isn't to grow anymore. Your goal is to survive. You're just trying to repair the damage. So any extra cash you get from your salary, whatever, you don't spend it.
You use it to pay down debt. You're deleveraging.
Aggressively, you don't take out new loans, even if they're free, because your only priority is getting that debt off your back. You just want to get back to zero.
And this is the collective paradox. Because for me, as an individual, if my house value drops, paying down my mortgage is the responsible, rational thing to do.
It's perfectly rational for you. But this is the classic paradox of thrift. If everyone, every household, every business starts saving and paying down debt at the exact same time,
then nobody is spending.
Nobody is spending. And one person's spending is always another person's income.
So if I stop buying stuff, your business starts earning money.
And incomes drop across the board. The whole economy chokes. The more everyone tries to be financially responsible as individuals, the worse the collective economy gets.
It's a vicious cycle, and it explains why the central bank seems so powerless.
It makes their main tools useless. You can cut interest rates to zero. You can even make them negative. But if my psychological goal is just to get out of debt, I'm not taking on a new loan, no matter how cheap it is.
I'm not looking at the price of money. I'm looking at the size of my debt.
Exactly. The engine revs, but the gears just will not catch.
And while all this is happening, there's this other silent enemy creaking in that makes everything 10 times worse.
Deflation.
Deflation. We need to talk about this.
This is the third pillar of the trap. It's what locks the door from the outside.
Okay, let me play devil's advocate for a second, because if I'm listening to this right now and you tell me prices are going down, my immediate thought is, great.
Yeah, of course.
Who doesn't want cheaper groceries or a cheaper car? Why do economists treat falling prices like it's the end of the world?
It's probably the biggest misconception in economics. We're all conditioned to hate inflation prices going up, so we just assume the opposite must be wonderful. But deflation, it's an economic trap that is incredibly hard to escape.
So walk us through it. Why is cheap stuff so bad?
It's not about the price today. It's about your expectation of the price tomorrow. So let's say you're thinking about buying a new TV. You've got the money. But you notice that TV prices dropped 2% this month. And the news says they'll probably drop another 2% next month. What do?
I wait. Obviously. Why would I buy it now if I can get it cheaper in a month?
Exactly. You wait. And so do millions of other people. So consumption it dries up. And the TV stores, they see that no one is buying. So they have to cut prices even more to move the inventory.
Which just proves to me that I was right to wait, so I keep waiting.
It's a spiral. It's a death spiral for consumption. But there's another more technical piece of this that's even more dangerous, and it has to do with debt.
This was the part of the analysis that really got me, the link between deflation and the real cost of borrowing.
Right, we have to break down the math. We usually look at the nominal interest rate, that's the number the bank advertises. Let's say it's 2%. Sounds really low.
Historically very cheap.
But the real cost of your loan is affected by what's happening to the value of money itself. With inflation, the money I pay you back with in the future is worth less. So inflation actually helps borrowers.
Right. Paying back $100 is easier when $100 doesn't buy very much.
Exactly. But with deflation, prices are falling. That means money's becoming more valuable over time. $1 tomorrow buys more than $1 today.
So the dollars I have to pay back are heavier? They're worth more than the dollars I originally borrowed.
Precisely. So to get the real interest rate, what your debt actually feels like, you take the bank's rate, the nominal rate, and you subtract the inflation rate.
Okay, so if the bank rate is 2% and inflation is 2%, my real cost is 0. Easy enough.
Right. But in China, we have deflation. Prices are falling by, let's say, 2%. So you take the bank rate of 2% and you subtract negative 2%.
Subtracting a negative. Okay, that makes it a positive. So 2 plus 2 is 4.
Exactly. The real interest rate, the felt cost of your debt, is 4%, even though the bank is advertising 2%. The economic reality is that your debt is getting more expensive every single day.
So even if the central bank is screaming low rates, the deflationary environment is acting like a silent, invisible rate hike.
The source material puts it perfectly. The burden of debt becomes heavier, and the economy freezes up without anyone actively hitting the brakes. The environment itself is the brake.
Wow, that's actually terrifying. So you have people desperate to pay down debt because of the balance sheet recession. And at the same time, deflation is making that very debt harder and heavier to pay down, which makes them want to save even more.
It's a perfect storm.
Yeah.
It really is. And that leads to the next question. If there's no demand inside China, where does all that stuff they make? Where does it go?
Right, because the factories are still there, those assembly lines are still running.
And this is where the story stops being a domestic Chinese issue and becomes a global one. This is why you need to care, whether you're in New York or London or anywhere else.
Because all those goods have to go somewhere.
Correct. When you have massive industrial capacity, but really weak domestic demand, you have to find a buyer somewhere else. Nations in this spot always try to export their way out of the problem.
They turn the fire hose outward.
They do. We are seeing what is essentially a massive overflow of Chinese goods into the global market. And to compete, to clear all that inventory, they're pushing them out at lower and lower prices.
So we get this flood of EVs, solar panels, steel, you name it. And again, it's that double-edged sword. Short term, as a consumer in the US or Europe, hey, I might get a cheaper TV.
Right. The Chinese deflation gets exported. It can even bring down inflation numbers in other countries, which might look good on paper for a central bank.
The long term.
Long term, it puts immense crushing pressure on global manufacturers.
Because if a factory in Ohio or Germany has to compete with Chinese goods that are being sold at rock bottom prices.
They can't compete. It's not a level playing field. It can hollow out entire industries. It forces companies in other countries to either slash their own prices to unsustainable levels or just go out of business.
So what looks like a discount at the store is really a symptom of this huge economic imbalance that could lead to job losses at home.
It's exporting the pain. China keeps its factories running to avoid mass unemployment, but the deflationary pressure gets shipped in containers to the rest of the world.
And that explains why we're seeing trade tensions rise, why tariffs are going up. It's a mechanical reaction to this flood.
Countries are trying to put up dams to stop it.
So to put it all together, a broken transmission mechanism caused by a balance sheet recession, which is then locked in place by deflation, and now it's spilling over globally. The source material calls this a chronic disease.
That's the diagnosis. A liquidity trap isn't like a normal recession where you have a bad year and then you bounce back.
Yeah.
It's chronic. And the analysis draws a direct parallel to Japan.
The famous lost decades.
Yes. In the 1990s, Japan had a massive real estate and stock market bubble burst. Sound familiar?
Very familiar. It's the exact same script.
They went into a balance sheet recession. They fought deflation for years. And despite having interest rates at basically zero for decades, they faced economic stagnation. The economy just shuffled along, never really growing, never collapsing, just stuck.
And the warning from the source is that without some kind of deep structural change, China could be heading down that same path.
And the really scary part is that the standard fixes aren't working. As we've said, the problem is structural and it's psychological. You can't just fix it by tweaking an interest rate.
It's like trying to solve a crisis of confidence with a financial tool.
Exactly. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink.
Yeah.
And you can't force a consumer who feels broke to spend money, no matter how cheap it is.
So let's just do a quick recap of this entire chain reaction we've been talking about.
Sure. It all started with the real estate bust.
That triggered a balance sheet recession where everyone, and I mean everyone, started focusing on paying down debt instead of spending.
That created the liquidity trap, where the central bank's main tool lowering interest rates stopped working.
Which led to deflation, the spiral of falling prices and delayed spending.
And finally, because all that demand is missing at home, China is now exporting that deflation abroad, which is impacting the entire global economy.
It's a massive domino effect.
Yeah.
And the source material leaves us with a really provocative question to end on. It sort of turns the tables on the listener.
It does. It asks you to stop being an observer and start thinking like a policymaker.
The question is this. If you were in charge in Beijing right now, and you offered free money, but nobody took it, what would you do to break the trap?
How do you restore confidence? That's the multi-trillion-dollar question.
Do you bail out households? Do you let major companies fail? Every single choice has a huge and painful cost.
Something to think about the next time you see a clearance sale sticker on a product.
Is it just a bargain, or is it a symptom of a much larger global shift? That's all for this deep dive. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.